Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelina Carlton, the hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, where I look to distill the best practices, positive examples in action, and the best ideas to inspire you. As today's affluent are two-thirds self-made, I hope to invite a variety of guests from many walks of life and income levels to bring you their insights and experiences. These guests range from family office professionals, Hollywood directors, and today, an interior designer, as they each contribute their thought leadership to the subject of legacy. I hope to provide interesting guests who challenge your beliefs with their strong bias towards optimism and how you too can value your life, time, and personal legacy. Cristiana Crin was born and raised in Transylvania, in a country known as Romania. She traveled the world to find a place that felt comfortable for her to do something different. It took her a few years, but today it's a reality. She is based in Chicago and London, designing spaces without geographical borders. At Perpetuum Designs, she built a reputation for turning heads. When people walk into a space that she has designed, they stop, they look around, they acknowledge that they are experiencing something different. Welcome, Christiana.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And is there anything that you would like to share regarding your upbringing or your journey from Transylvania to Chicago?
Yeah, so I left my country when I was in my early 20s. And as any kid and as any teenager or young adult, I had the American dream. And I remember watching TV, movies on TV and news and all kinds of shows about the United States. And of course, everyone dreams about this. When I got here, though, I experienced something different because I landed in Detroit, and this was in back in 2006.
Okay.
And back then, Detroit was not the safest or the prettiest place to land.
Okay.
And I decided, after 4 months of having a job over there, that this is not for me. This is not the American dream. They can keep it. I want to go back and
These are
just,
those learning distinctions.
yes, yes,
Yes. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And I was lucky that a friend of mine who lived in Chicago back then convinced me to come and visit. And I came on 4th of July. And the minute that I landed, I knew that this is it. This city is fantastic, and I can tell you that 16 years later, I am here and I am experiencing the magic every single day.
Okay.
My studio is somewhere close to downtown, and every day when I go towards the office, I remember the experience that I had 16 years ago that has not faded one bit. My amazingness, how beautiful everything is, and it is a beautiful architectural city. So I'm happy that I chose to stay.
Okay.
um, it is definitely different from what I am used to growing up back home. I grew up on a farm. I grew up surrounded by nature and animals, and everything was very simple. And to be here today, I am grateful, and I try not to take it for granted every single day.
Yeah, and I know you're very humble right now, but you've been incredibly successful, whether it's working with luxury residential interior design as well as hospitality. And I want to make the focus of this conversation about you and then your legacy. But for one moment, can you share some of the projects that you have had the privilege to work on?
Of course, yes, yes. So I started my company about 6, 7 years ago, and I started like any designer with very small projects.
Okay.
First, it was just a room here and there, bathrooms and kitchens. I've done a ton of those in the beginning, just because I was by myself when I started, and I was a little afraid to walk into bigger projects. And of course, once I started being comfortable that running a business is different than being employed, and I realized that this is not that big of a deal, then I started walking into bigger projects. And we started working with private clients on the residential side, and I would take smaller restaurants and takeaways in the beginning. And of course, as years passed, I started getting more and more comfortable in taking larger projects. So right now we work with developers and we build houses from scratch. We design, we don't build. We design houses from scratch, and bigger restaurants. Some are the renovations and some are just brand new buildings. And yeah, different aspects. So we just finished a clinic, a medical clinic. I've never thought I'm gonna get the chance to do something like this because it's not something we advertise. But they came to us and they said, you know, we saw some of your restaurants and we want to do something different. And it was a huge success. So, yes,
Yes. And I just want to touch upon something. You can speak 4 languages.
I do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So I speak Romanian because I was born in Romania, and back home I used to be fluent in Spanish and French, and then I had to learn English when I moved to the States. I knew a little bit of English just from watching TV and listening to music and things like that, but I was not able to speak. So I'm gonna say that while I do understand conversation in both French and Spanish, I am not as good to replying as I used to be,
Okay.
just because I lost a little bit of my practice. But yeah, I'm fluent. I can speak 4 languages.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So why interior design?
Um, it was by accident. Um, my story as an immigrant is not really different than any other immigrant story. We come here, we work until we crash. I used to have 3 jobs when I came here, especially after I moved to Chicago.
Interesting. What were those 3 jobs? Just so someone
So
who's
at one
listening.
point,
Yeah.
absolutely. So at some point, I was an office manager in a chiropractic office.
Okay.
I was also a part-time assistant in a makeup department at ABC7, the news station here locally in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I was also cleaning houses for 2 hours a week. I remember on a Wednesday afternoon, on my lunch break, I had to give up my lunch break and go and clean a house for 2 hours every week. So those were the 3 jobs that I had them for some time, and then I switched.
Was this in Chicago?
This was in Chicago. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And I
So
just wanted to point that out for a
yeah,
second because here you are today, and I will put a link to your Instagram channel. But you have created some of the most amazing spaces. I mean, you really have
thank you.
transformed restaurants in an era where restaurants have suffered, especially the last couple of years. And you're flying in between London to Chicago and back again. Your schedule is crazy busy. So thank you for accepting my invitation to be on
Appreciate
this
it. Yes.
Designing Your Legacy podcast. And you paid your dues.
It wasn't the easiest experience. I'm gonna tell you this. Especially when I decided to go back to school. So to back up a little bit, I chose interior design, and it was a pure accident because I got a position within a development company
Okay.
as an executive assistant, and I was the right hand of 2 incredible architects and developers. And
And you're really good at it.
because I learned from them.
I
I
see.
learned from them,
Okay.
and I didn't know anything, and I remember my first interview, and shamefully, I recorded my first interview because I wanted to make sure that once I get home, I will re-listen to every single thing I said. I am the type of person that tends to say yes to a lot of things, and then I'm like, oh, oops, what did I do? Did I say yes to something that I'm not sure? So I wanted to make sure that everything that I said yes to, I was able to do it and accomplish it. And I started with little tasks. I was a secretary. I was doing administrative work. I was replying to emails and just doing cleanups, just office things. And 2 months in that job, I realized that this is where I want to be. Now, all the structural project management tasks that I apply today, I learned from this company by because most of their contracts were with the United States of Army,
Okay.
and they are tough. They are very, very structural, very, very tough, very, very on point. So every single document that we submitted, it had to be to the point, literally, with all the requests that they had. So I learned to be organized. I
Okay.
had no idea about interior design, architecture, anything back then. It was just strictly executing different tasks, helping project managers. I was still an executive assistant, but because I loved what they were doing with projects, I asked to help with whatever I could. And this is how I learned. This is how I learned to read architectural plans. This is how I learned to do purchasing. This is how I learned to do project management. Interior design, it was never within that one company, it was never in the perspective because it was not my job. So I took the time to learn as much as I could. And then I realized that I was asking more and more work and
Okay.
more tasks. At some point, I was Saturday and Sunday as well because I took on so much and I was so thirsty to learn as much as possible about project management
Okay.
that I didn't have any time off. But it was okay because I was in love with what I was doing, and it was perfectly fine. So that's when I decided to go back to school, and I had to switch companies because I wanted to be in a more creative field and surrounded by interior designers. And I got a job with an interior design company that was focusing on hospitality
Okay.
and just private clients as well. They were doing some residential as well, but very, very, very high end. And the good part was that this company was also brand new. So I was the fifth person to be employed, and now they're
Okay.
over, I don't know, they're probably close to 100 employees in that company. And I got the chance to develop the purchasing department from scratch.
So there was a
And
lot of opportunity for growth.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And to learn. I didn't care for the position as much.
Okay.
Although yes, that came of course with the job as the team grew, and because I was still part of the team, of course my title changed, and my position got advanced because I had way more responsibilities, and as I was starting to build a team and learn to work with people and supervise people in my department, of course, things changed, but I got the chance to start with them, and this was another huge opportunity for me, and shaped me into the person, and brought me the knowledge that I have today. And of course, when you work for other companies, you make mistakes. You try not to. We all make mistakes, but when you get to do those mistakes early in your career, you learn, and then you learn to apply to not apply them and not to make the same mistakes moving forward. So that was a plus, definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing the background of what has made you you today, because one of the things I brought up regarding designing a legacy, sometimes people see the final package and they don't realize the years of hard work and sweat equity that go into it, as well as the setbacks and the challenges. What would you say, and I realize this isn't, a question I gave to ahead of time, but what would you say was one of the biggest challenges or setbacks for you? Was it working with other people in a supervisory position?
So this is I'm gonna hit 2 points over here.
Okay.
One of them was when I started going back to school. I hit a wall right there and then. I wanted to go back and get an architectural degree. So I have a journalism degree from back home,
Okay.
and going back to school, I was 30 something, early 30s, yeah, 33 I think, when I started school. And this was not something that I thought I'm gonna start again, but because I felt that I was limited, and I had that I knew that I wanted to start my own company at some point. I had a feeling that without a degree I'm not going to be able to do this,
Okay.
and I wanted to become an architect. And when I applied to different schools, different programs, every school told me you have to have financial aid because obviously, I mean, school here in the United States is very expensive.
Okay.
And every program that I tried to apply said no to me. because I was making too much money. I wasn't making that much money, like a lot of money, but I was
But to apply for financial aid.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So everyone said no. So then I said, okay, I'm gonna settle. I don't think I settled right now because I love my field and I love what I do every single day.
Okay.
But right there and then, for a minute, it was I was settling, and I said, okay, I'm gonna find a program for interior design.
Because it was by default.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes. Um, but I'm not sorry that this happened. I had to put everything on credit cards, and it was a pain. I had years of struggle financially because I had to pay everything back,
Okay.
and those credit cards were just eating my time, my life, everything. It was hard,
And
but
I just want to say that that's really, that's real. I mean, 16% APR, the interest
definitely,
rates. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And my interest rates were skyrocketing, and it was tough. It was definitely tough.
Wow.
How
I just also want to share that your answer surprised me because I thought you were going to say, well, I always had a love for interior design and growing up I had a knack for it. But instead, it
no,
was yeah, yeah.
no, I was always creative as a child. Definitely, I always dressed differently. I did different things with my hair. I was definitely not going with the crowd ever.
Okay.
I like to be different because I always thought I have something different to offer to the world in general. So yes, but not in. I didn't think about interior design. Now I grew up in a creative field. My mom is a cosmetologist and a makeup artist, and
Okay.
she's still in business and she's successful. So growing up with her and going to fashion shows as a kid, it really cultivated my artistic side,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
And also she's not like any other person that I've ever met, so it helped. It definitely helped to have someone in the family that's a little bit different,
She was a
per se.
creative spirit.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
definitely, definitely. So this was definitely the first. School was hard, and once I got in, um I was working a full-time job. I was full-time at school. I was sleeping 4 hours at night. um it cost me a lot. I This was happening for 3.5 years.
Wow.
I had no vacations, I had no weekends, I had nothing. 4 hours of sleep, and that's it.
Yeah.
It was the hardest thing that I've done until the point that I started my company. Once I started the company, there was one thing that I didn't take in consideration, and that was marketing. When I left my previous job, I was all excited that I had a few projects lined up, word of mouth, as simple as that. People that knew me and knew me personally um, started sending clients my way, and I did, just a few projects, a couple of restaurants, a few residential projects, and then I was confident that this is going to be it. I put up a website and I was just waiting for the magic to happen. And then nothing happened because
Yeah.
I did not think about marketing. Um, so I had about 8 months of nothing.
Yeah. And I just want to interrupt for a moment. That's always the part they forget to tell you about.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
No,
yeah, because
no,
even as a coach back in 2014, I remembered I went through school with the Coactive Training Institute, and they kind of left out that part about like half of it is you have to be really good at what you do, but then the other half of it is the business and the sales. And you kind of
exactly.
just figure that out because you have no other choice.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I woke up and I saw that nothing was happening, I was still young in business. I only had a handful of projects, nothing else. And most of them, especially on the residential side, yeah, I had a couple of restaurants, and I had an accounting office, very small, very basic. But then on the residential side, I did a bathroom here, a basement there, a kitchen here. What do you do with that? I mean, I didn't want to be looked at as a specialist for kitchens. Yes, it's part of interior design, but that's not what I want to do with the rest of my life. It was
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight right there something that you wanted to define your own narrative and identity, not have someone else put you in a box of labeling you as like the kitchen designer or the bathroom
Exactly.
designer. Yeah.
Exactly. So you do in any, I don't know if it applies in all the other businesses, but for example, in interior design, because we are creative people and because we do tend to be really, really good at something, we can do everything else. But there's one niche that we tend to go towards, something that inspires us, something that we enjoy doing. Because yes, while we do business for the money, in interior design it's not about the money, it's not only about the money,
Right.
it's also about finding the spaces and finding the clients that will let you run wild and run free with your creativity.
Being led by your artistry, I might say.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So doing this, I knew that I want to do residential, but I wanted to be more on the luxury side. Just because some, especially working with developers, you have way more freedom to do things the way that you envision them.
Okay.
With private clients, with some it works, but not always. I mean, we do have clients where they have already in their head 50% of the design, and we do work with them obviously, and it's fun, and we created beautiful projects working hand in hand with clients that have an idea about what they want. But it's always nice when you start from a white canvas and you can start presenting your ideas, and then of course that changes over time, because as you walk into a project and you start from scratch, once you already develop the plans for any project, commercial or residential, the client comes in and then the creativity starts, and it's a teamwork with every single project. So but I find it that with developers and with larger private clients, on the residential side, at least, you have a little bit more creativity. It's focusing on one niche rather than specific little ones.
Yeah. So I know in your other two podcasts that you went on, there was a lot of conversation around project management, but I
Mhm.
definitely want to keep the focus on you. So what makes you special?
um, the first thing that we learn in school is form follows function, and like you
Okay.
mentioned, I did speak about the functionality, and the tasks that are involved in project management before, because it is the most one of the most important aspects of completing a project successfully. But the one thing that I would say that does make me different is that I find value in insignificant things. And I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. Right now, we're finishing a restaurant. It's churros restaurant. They make these amazing churros, best I've ever had. They're quite amazing.
In
Um,
Chicago?
in Chicago, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this project is local, but we came at the end of the project, and we don't have budget anymore. We had to spend it on some unforeseen construction charges,
Challenges. Yeah.
challenges and charges, and unfortunately we just had to put the money in that, while the client had to redirect the budget in that direction. So
So
we are
surprise, here you are.
exactly, but it's we are expecting this. It's construction, and a lot of things happen unexpectedly,
Yeah.
which is fine. But this is where we have to get creative, and because we didn't have a lot of money left, I had to improvise. And
Okay.
we just had a meeting this morning with the client, and it was funny. I was rushing. I was in between other two clients. It was a ASAP situation, emergency. Let's talk. My clients were at Home Depot picking up some wood that I specified, and I had to do a FaceTime with them, like on the spot, to
Okay.
pick the wood that I would like to see in their space. And I took a piece of paper and a pen, and I literally started drawing. And I'm not good at drawing, but I literally printed their photo that I took in their space, and I
Mhm.
pointed that this is where the wood is gonna be. This is what I want to do. We're gonna alternate wood and grass, wood and grass, wood and grass, and then
Okay.
we're gonna put all the other decor elements that we already got somewhere in between. So I literally on their photo pointed on a piece of paper what I want where, because they're opening tomorrow and they're like literally at the last phase. And I couldn't help them because my day was scheduled. They were supposed to push this to next week. They couldn't. So I adapt to circumstances and situations. But the fact that I can pick little things and get creative with little things and
Yeah.
invent uh, things as they go, I find it that for me, it comes a little bit easier than other people that I talk to in the industry.
Yeah, I just want to point the flashlight for a moment that it's your ability to handle stress under pressure. And you've mastered your craft and art
Yes.
when you can be put on the spot. And literally, if you have to draw it on the back of a napkin, all the elements are there. And also that aspect of human relations that you can connect to whoever it is listening to you so that you can have a meeting of the minds. And this still becomes fun because I can imagine remodeling a commercial space. There's got to be, like you had said, if they're opening back up again tomorrow, there's that panic that can set in. And I can imagine that you need to pull your client back out of fear and put them into creativity, hope, excitement. This is going to work out and it's going to look marvelous.
With every crisis, I say that it's just design. It's just furniture. It's not a life and death situation. We are not brain surgeons and we are not lawyers. So there's a solution. There's always a solution, and it's
I think
funny
one
because
of the things that comes up is sometimes somebody can have like the ideal in their mind.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
know,
And they
I
get
know, I know.
really emotionally attached to that.
We all get, oh, I cried so many times and I know I'm going to cry again. I cried in front of clients. I cried in situations where I'm in the room and it is not what I drew. You walk into a space and you expect to see an execution done according to the plan,
Yeah.
and
So it's
we're very
either,
detailed.
yeah, it's either heaven or it's frustration.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So I give myself time out. Every time there's a crisis, it's a decor crisis, it's an interior design crisis. Yes, sometimes the crisis can be bigger because a vendor didn't submit their furniture or their items on time, and we won't get them in time for the contractor to install them. And that is a pressure because after us there's several other people that come in to implement everything that we design.
Yeah.
So that can be a pain and that can be stressful. So I give myself a time out. And it's funny because my right hand assistant, she got used to me having a time out.
Okay.
Um, I don't give people time out. I put myself in time out when I have to figure out a situation.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
always a solution. So no one's gonna die. No one's gonna lose their house or, you know, go to jail or I don't know,
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
like some kind of medical issue. So yeah.
I can imagine that sometimes, though restaurateurs are known, for having big egos, high tempers, and this is the survival of their business. And taste is also just, and we're going to talk about fashion in a moment, but taste is so personal. Some person could like the lime green, and the other person wants olive green. And to one person, lime green is the best thing since ice cream.
Yes, and that is true. But we found a way that we eliminated that from the very first design meeting. So
Okay.
after we decide that we are engaging with a client in a space, we call it a mood board. And what we
Okay.
do is
Okay.
we pull elements, not
Okay.
just colors. I mean, yes, colors as well, but furniture pieces and decor pieces and different photos that we find online, because we are literally trying to feel the mood of the client. Um, and this is how everything starts. And there's a lot of crosses and there's a lot of checks, and some things work and some things don't. And we take the things that they work and we develop based on that. So it took a while for me to get used to doing this, but once we figured it out, every project starts like this. Every
Okay.
client gets the same exact thing. I mean,
In terms of
obviously not in
managing.
exactly,
Yeah.
and it works. So we are sticking to it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, good to hear. What has been the hardest thing you've ever done?
Um, Project wise, walking out. I had to walk out one time from a client. It became a very difficult and very stressful situation.
Because of
It never
their expectations, their personality, their
personality and expectation both played a factor.
okay,
They We walked into a space and we were supposed to do just one side of the floor, and this was a retail store.
okay,
After they decided that they're gonna get the second part of the store, the floor as well, and um, I um, I was okay with that, but they wanted everything done in the same time frame, and there was a lot of pressure.
crunch time.
And exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And we were done with the furniture. We were done with basically everything. And then they also changed the design on us like a couple of times. And by the second time they changed it, I said, okay, you signed, you agreed, we were going with this. There were just too
Did you
many
did you feel
changes.
disrespected, or was it that you felt like because they deviated from the contract, what else would they deviate from?
Um, I thought that they were trying to take advantage.
Oh, like a two for one?
Yes,
Do
yes.
you think that they would have done that to anybody, or do you think that was
100%. Yes.
okay? So it wasn't
So
like your age or
no,
gender
no,
or
no, no,
being an
no,
immigrant.
no,
Okay.
definitely not. No,
Okay.
definitely not. There were men, yes, but they also had an accent. So I don't, I never, I was only put in a situation like this once in my life.
They were
Um,
testing you.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But I ended up hiring a lawyer just to kind of see if I can walk out of that project. And luckily, I was able to. So I did my part. I did more than my part, and everything was good. So I
Yeah.
walked out, and it never happened after. You have conflict sometimes, not with clients. I never had a conflict with a client after or before that, but you do have conflicts with contractors.
Yeah,
Um,
can I
uh,
just say something
yeah,
real quick? I appreciate that you're speaking into sometimes having to work with difficult people, because again, that isn't covered all the time in school or conversations typically between entrepreneurs. I think it's those moments where you get put into what I call the valley, and you have to figure out, how do you survive that? How do you maneuver and navigate your way out of that, where you get to keep your dignity and sanity and
exactly.
yeah, and like you said, they would have done it to anybody. So it wasn't personal to you, but good grief, what a test to have to be
Oh
put
yes,
through.
that was hard. That was by far the hardest job that I've ever had within the company.
In
Definitely.
in Chicago or in London?
In Chicago. In
Okay.
London, we because everything's done remotely, I feel that the projects there are a little bit easier.
Okay.
And we did adapt since COVID started. We did adapt, and we learned to do things in a different way. And I'm as sad as I am for the world epidemic, and I haven't seen my family in quite some time, and I do miss them. And I hope to see them soon. But we did learn a lot during the pandemic, and for that I am grateful because it did put us in a spot where. As I said before, we make mistakes and we are put in difficult situations all the time, but it's our choice if we want to learn from that or not. And we
Yeah.
learned a lot during COVID, and for that I am grateful.
Okay.
We adapted online, and things are going smoother than ever
Okay.
while we learn to work online.
And I know you're busier than ever. And this
Yes,
conversation that we're having right now was planned back in December of last year.
yeah,
And so, again, I just applaud that you came to the United States and you had a dream, as
thank you.
that as the child who daydreamed back in Romania, and all of those daydreaming of what you did in terms of your internal imagination then manifested into the 3D reality. And here you are today, like I mentioned, you've got more business than you know what to do with, where your boyfriend takes away your laptop and says, you have to stop working now, even if you're
Yes,
passionate about it. Yeah, yeah.
definitely, definitely. But we're here to grow, and the horizons hold a lot for the future. So we're always looking forward.
Yes. So, speaking of passions, How does fashion influence you?
As I mentioned before, and this is a it's a topic that's very close to my heart. I grew up with my mom being an artist and a makeup artist, and I grew up in the fashion world. And it always stayed with me, not only because I was dressing a little bit different as a teenager and even as a child, but
Expressing yourself.
exactly, exactly. I had no idea that I'm going to land here today, but yes, I was definitely different as a child. Um, I'm a huge fan of fashion shows and fashion designers, and
Okay.
I don't get me wrong. I don't dress Prada, or I don't always go for high-end designers. Absolutely
Chanel
not.
and yeah,
Definitely not.
Gucci.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
But I'm actually wearing a dress right now that I paid $15 for it, and I'm super happy with it. So it's not about the money.
Yeah, I just wanted to point a flashlight for a moment that you have an appreciation of the aesthetic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And I do follow fashion shows, and I'm gonna give you two examples. Last year we did a very small, very quick project. It was done in a week. It was an Airbnb. We had to go in and do decor and some finishes and furniture, of course. And as I was walking through that space, and I was thinking about what to do here, I remembered that last year during the pandemic, Prada had a fashion show where their line of clothes was very, very straight and very architectural. So I took that fashion show and I watched it over and over again, and I took pops of colors.
Okay.
And what we ended up doing was we were drawing lines on those walls and creating those pops of colors that I saw in the Prada show on the walls
Okay.
for that wow element, because it was an Airbnb, it had to stand out. We
Okay.
did some market research for the other Airbnbs in the area, and this is how we ended up doing it, and it was a huge success. So it's always inspiring to watch movies about art, about fashion, about fashion designers. I know that right now there's a lot of movies out there about fashion designers and their lives and how they started, and it is inspiring. And then there's another aspect on a more warmer side. You look at Dolce and Gabbana, and they're all about flowers. And I come from a culture where our traditional clothes um, are handmade with stitches and flowers, and they have different motifs, but very colorful. So you take that, and I look at Dolce and Gabbana, and then I don't know if you heard of Frida Kahlo.
Yes. Yes. She's
Of
Mexican.
course,
Yes. Yes.
exactly. So she always had flowers in her head and a lot of jewelry, colorful. So I tend to be very, very drawn to flowers when it comes to decor for restaurants. And it doesn't matter if it's a Mexican. I did a lot of Mexican restaurants for some reason in the last year. It just happened this way, but I'm always happy to walk in spaces like this because I know that in the end it's going to be very, very joyful. And I always watch a Dolce and Gabbana fashion show before I go into buying flowers for a restaurant. It's just very inspiring to me. So yeah,
Yeah, I think it's also just as I think it's written in scripture that iron sharpens iron. I think it's that inspiration that then fuels you from one artist to another, and it
of
just
course,
taps into like that realm or frequency of creativity, and then it's like the ether. What else is like the universe going to bring to you?
of
Wonderful.
course, of
Yeah.
course, absolutely, yes, yes,
What
yes.
what advice, if any, would you give to other designers that are aspiring or young or just in general out there? And then we're going to chat about your legacy in a moment.
Absolutely. Learn as much as you can. School is not enough. Get jobs with it's not. It's honestly, I didn't learn what I know today from school. I
Yeah.
I mean it of course it helped, and of course, a lot of the design aspects I learned in school, do's and don'ts and things like that. No, go learn project management.
Yeah, the only reason I laughed right there is because of the price tag that's associated with some of the name brand universities and schools that are out there, probably including architectural and design schools. But also, there's this idea or this I would say maybe a business promise that if you graduate from this school and with this degree, it's almost like you can just rest on your laurels and doors will be opened and the networking with the alumni. But little do you have to realize that you really need to get out there, like you said, with the growth mindset and just learn and take action, massive action, because the marketing doesn't happen, by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that the fact that you go to an Ivy League school for interior design, it will open a lot of doors with high-end architectural companies and design company. Yes, that is true, 100%. But at the same time, once you graduate school, if you want to go on your own and if you want to open a business or be an entrepreneur in this line of business, this is not enough. Because in
Okay.
school, you're gonna learn little things about project management and purchasing, but this is to actually be able to successfully finish a project and start and carry a project from beginning to end without knowing what you're doing in terms of project management and purchasing. You don't have a chance. And it's a shame that a lot of kids think that they can do that. And I've seen so many. I mean, I network, of course. We all network and we all hear stories and we see people all the time. I failed so many times with so many things. And it's heartbreaking because you go through school and yes, you do this because you have a dream. And in United States, you do have the luxury to know what you want to do at least with half of your life when you sign up to a university or within a college or with a design program, because they train you even in school that this is your what you're drawn to. We don't have that luxury in Romania. It's, you go to school, you learn everything, and then you finish high school and then you're like, oh, why what's next?
Yeah.
I don't know, we're going to play the lottery and find out if it fits or not. So
Yeah, I think one of the things you're pointing to isn't just that they can't cut corners, but the level of responsibility that is required with success.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely. And
yeah,
this is something that you learn by doing. And the only way to learn this is by working.
yeah.
So start as an intern or start with and I know that a lot of times designers go for designing positions, but if at some point in life anyone is thinking of opening their own business, my suggestion and what helped me a lot, not to go to for a design position, because design you can you learn it that you learn in school how to draw, how to implement certain rules. You can do that, and if you have an artistic sense, you
Okay.
can pick fabric and you can pick colors and it's not a big deal. Project management, because without that you are dead,
Yeah,
basic, like literally dead.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yes,
I think what you're speaking to also is just you have to work with people and the expectations. And when
yes,
they give you that baton, it's like, all the spoken and unspoken expectations that come with that and having to figure that
exactly.
out. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that even if, you are employed by someone else, once you do project management, you do face clients. And the fact that you're not the one that's doing the marketing or going to those clients in the first place, but the fact that you are interacting and you are in the middle of the problems, and there will be problems because
Yeah.
it's construction, it happens. But because you are in the middle of a general contractor or between him and the client, or it teaches you a lot and patience. You need a lot of patience. It's just the way that the world works in interior design. But yeah, those are important key elements to actually take 2 3 years. Don't think about a year, because in a year you don't learn anything. It's just you get yourself familiarized with
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah.
Take 2 3 years to allow yourself to work, switch companies if that's what you think it takes. If
Mhm.
you're not thinking that you're getting enough education in one company, switch companies. But try to learn as much as possible about everything else aside from interior design.
Yeah. I think you're pointing to life's surprises. Yeah. When you get
Definitely,
blindsided, yeah, by something
definitely.
that you weren't expecting and you just have to improv that moment. So, did you ever fail? And then I will ask you about your values and legacy.
I don't think I ever failed because with everything, every single thing that went wrong, and there were many things that went wrong. I quit a few times.
Yeah.
I
Do
had
tell.
I yes, I did. I had a time for probably 3 years when I was quitting once every 3 months, and I would come
Companies or
home.
clients?
Oh, no, no. I would quit myself with the company. I
Oh,
would
okay.
come home
Okay.
crying or
Okay.
pissed off, and
Okay.
I would say, I quit. I do not want to do this anymore. I'm gonna go and look for a job, and I'm not gonna do this anymore. Now this
Okay.
is long past, it hasn't happened in a long time. But it was hard. It was definitely hard. But then I learned that every time something bad happens, I learned something from it, and this no one taught me. This is something that no one can teach you. You learn for yourself.
Yeah. In the
Um,
growing pains.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I learned not to quit anymore.
Yeah.
I would quit for a day and a half, or the most that I quit was 5 days, I think. And it's not. I would never leave a client hanging. This never happened, and I do take a lot of pride in that. I never left clients hanging, but I did. There were times when I would come home and I would say, "This project is done," or I'm finishing what I have started right now, and that's it. I'm gonna look for a job, and I'm gonna just go be employed somewhere else because this is too hard for me.
Do you think it's the stress, or do you think it's trying to make all of those different moving pieces work simultaneously?
Um, I think that this is, we talked about the stigma of being a woman before, and I think
Okay.
that in this type of work, when you're not just doing interior design and the decor pieces, but when you get involved with developers and general contractors, and a lot of times I walked into a space and people thought I'm the secretary, because if you do wear, I mean, you don't wear high heels on a
But
construction site, but
but
because I
you're
have
dressed
lipstick.
feminine. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks like, and I'm almost 40, and my face is like, I have a very young face,
The
and
baby
people
face.
never.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But I don't, for a long time I thought this was a very big disadvantage. I
Okay.
and I always, I was hoping to be older because I always thought that with age people have a little bit more respect.
Yeah.
And then I learned that once I open my mouth and we talk about everything, and
Then
I
you
know
you
what.
earn their respect. Yeah. I think
Exactly.
a lot of young ladies feel that way. There's
Yeah,
a lady that I mentor who is in real estate, and she feels that way sometimes. Like, does she need to be something other than who she is? And she just needs to
exactly.
be herself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did struggle with this in the beginning. Now I don't care anymore, and I'm happy that really happy that I got to this point.
Yeah. Well, I think you pushed through those tests and those growing pains. I used that phrase before. And I know that in the two other podcasts that you did, those guys were asking you for your thought leadership.
Yeah,
So it didn't even matter if you had a cute baby face. I mean, you have got clients that demand your talent and skill. And yeah. So it finally has gotten beyond the superficial stuff.
yeah. So this is one of the other things that I would say that everyone needs to give themselves time, because with time you gain experience, and if you are truly passionate about what you're doing, um, I know that a lot of times, like in the beginning, if someone would come to me and say you have to have patience, I mean, a lot of people actually told me, patience, it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. Well, yeah, but when you see that you're struggling, 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 and it doesn't happen, it does take a toll, and it
It wears
it
on the
ma-
person.
exactly. But in the end, it was just that you have to give it time, you have to be patient. Things will happen if you love what you do. If you put enough passion into it, things will happen. It's
Yeah.
impossible not to happen. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know there's that line from the movie, if you build it, they will come. But I also
Yes,
realize that what you're pointing to is that when you are going to master any skill, that it does take that practice and that repetition of,
of course.
right,
With
whether with
everything.
mood boards, project management, all of it. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. I look at it as, for any woman out there, if you learn to apply mascara,
Okay.
and if you learn to do this in the car, I never learned to do this in the car. You can do anything. If you can apply mascara while driving and not crash your car,
I've been there.
anything,
Yeah.
yes, anything in the world is possible. Yeah,
Yeah. 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 That is the adaptability on the spot.
absolutely. Absolutely.
The behind the scenes. Yes. Wonderful.
Yes,
Thank you for your transparency on that.
of course.
What legacy would you like to define, develop, and execute?
Um, I'm gonna approach this subject on a personal level. I look at my mom is the strongest woman that I have ever met,
Okay.
and I don't have kids yet, but I hope to have kids, and I would hope that my kids would look at me the same way I'm looking at my mom. Well, from a project side, yes, of
That's
course.
sweet. That's sweet. I just wanted to pause for a second.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. I love her to death, and I think I'm a strong woman. I did everything myself, and I got to this point. Now I have a team that I couldn't function without them, and I have partners and people involved. Yes, 100%. But up until I met them, I did everything by myself, and I owe this to my mom and to my family. um, they always pushed me to do whatever struck my mind, and sometimes it wasn't the easiest thing and the most logical thing, but the fact that I was encouraged by them to always follow my heart and do all the things that I wanted to do, that was huge. And I look at my mom, and she's a successful entrepreneur, and she's strong, she's beautiful, she's amazing. It's a true inspiration for me. And then I hope that, yes, my kids will say the same thing about me when they grow up, and when I'm gonna be old and older, and it's gonna come the time to retire. And then from a project point of view,
I
the
would
same
almost
thing.
say the value of
Yeah,
family.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, I put family aside for a long time because I was so focused on my career, and it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't. But I'm not sorry that I did, and now I'm ready to think about the children. I would hope to have my own, but I will adopt if that's not going to be possible, and I'm okay with that. And life goes on, and that's what I'm hoping for, definitely. And then from a project point of view, I hope to be at a level where I develop timeless spaces where in 50 years people will still walk through those doors and think, wow, who did this? And I'm
Yeah.
gonna be retired by then. So that maybe it's childish, but this is how it started. This is how everything started, and even the name of my company, Perpetuum Designs. Perpetuum is the Latin-based word of the word perpetual.
Oh, I wondered about that. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. And I
yes,
just want to say I don't think it's childish or idealistic. I think it's just that pure intention. I might even call it one of your guiding principles.
yes. Um, I haven't thought about this in depth. What's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I do this to be happy at the end of a project.
Okay.
Yes, we do this. We're in business to make money. This is number one, or it should be number one for me. Um, if at the end of the project I am happy with that project, I know the client is going to be happy, more than happy with that project. And every client that we come in contact with, and we sign an agreement to move forward and perform a job for them, I treat their projects as my own.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want, if I'm not satisfied, um and I'm pushy this way. I'm a little pushy this way, but so far everyone appreciated. So I hope that it's going to stay this way. I like to be proud at the end of every project of everything that all the labor and all the sweat that went into that space. So
Yeah. And a final
thank you.
question, what values does your legacy get to honor?
Um, we are hoping to move into doing more green, environmental friendly spaces.
Okay.
And I think that while up until right now everything's pretty, it is pretty. It's
Aesthetically.
functional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We haven't had the time. I haven't had the time because I was busy building the business to shift into a well-designed interior in terms of sustainability. And now that we are starting to work with developers, we are pulled into that world more and more. And I hope that in the end we will be able to sustain fully as a company the design build of properties, entire properties that are green, sustainable, and self-sustainable. So this is a dream, and this is also
A
part
vision.
of, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
I would say also that I think one of your values is stewardship of this earth as well as the resources for the future. I mean, you tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Definitely. No, definitely. So even with all the elements that we put in decor and interiors right now, while browsing through our website and through our portfolio, you see a lot of wood elements, stone elements, green
Yeah.
elements. So I always had this in the back of my head, and I always knew that this is where I'm going. Um, it was just a big step and took several years to get to the point where we are today, where we can definitely talk about not just the design of the interior, but the design of a full new build out and the materials that go in the construction of that house. So we do have a team of architects and constructors that we work hand in hand with. Um, that we learn from each other. We always have new things to challenge ourselves with. But I think that once we found good teams to work with, we are closer than ever to accomplish this.
Yeah. I might say a couple of your other values would include hard work and
Definitely,
and respect
definitely.
for opportunity because you don't seem to take anything for granted, which is beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I try not to. And if I have a week where I'm really busy, and today, for example, I'm planning on spending. It's like freezing cold in Chicago today, but the sun was out, and I'm really hoping that tomorrow is going to be a clear, sunny day, and I really want to spend some time outside and watch the trees. They do have no leaves, but take a walk in the park. I don't care, but just be in the weather, outside in the cold and in nature for a little bit because we don't have time. I go to the gym every day. I don't go outside and run, but
Yeah.
um, there's things that I miss, and nature is an important factor in my life. So it's been a week. I didn't have time to pay attention to nature. Tomorrow is gonna be the day. So
Yeah. So the connection with nature.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Are there any other final thoughts? And then I will close us out.
Um, no, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. It was very nice meeting you. I hope that I have a feeling we're gonna stay friends.
We will. We
You're
will.
you're amazing, and I do appreciate everything that you do. And you are very very good at what you do, and I enjoy listening to your other shows, and you're just amazing. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And I want to highlight before I read out the closing paragraph that I appreciate that you have given voice to your experience of being a self-made success. I mean, a lot of the times I throw out statistics like 2/3 of today's affluent are self-made, but I think a lot of the times people don't realize the amount of struggle and the years of hard work that go into that. It's like, it's year after year of like, oh, I had to put that on my credit card, and oh, that didn't work out. And it was 3 years in before it all finally came together. And I just really appreciate that you've given voice to that, because it takes a lot more hard work, I think, than some people realize.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm so sorry to say that a lot of people give up because it is hard. And I'm gonna mention a book that changed my life.
Please, please.
You find it. It's. I think it's still free on YouTube. It's called "Think and Grow Rich" by Napoleon
Yeah.
Hill.
Yeah.
So that book is my Bible.
Okay.
I do. I'm not a religious person. I do respect traditions, and I do believe in God. I'm not. I don't go to church every Sunday. I just don't have the time. And but I do listen to paragraphs from that book every chance I get, because and especially when things get tough, I
Yeah.
do take my time out.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, my I do give myself time out, and during this time out, I try to if it's not something on the creative side that I have to figure out, then I just put my earpods in and I listen to a paragraph or two from this book. I pick randomly because now I've listened to this book for so many times that I should know it by heart, but it's always a refreshed experience because it applies to different situations. So,
Yeah, that's lovely. It almost like resets your mind back to,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Thank you for
So,
speaking into that resource. Go ahead, please.
absolutely. So, when you think about giving up, listen to that book, but take your time because it's worth it 100%.
Wonderful. I will make sure to include that in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
definitely.
So to close out, I'm Angelina Carlson, the hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, as well as the founder to Legacy Planning, a boutique coaching and advisory firm based out of Beverly Hills, California, but international in those I coach. I hope to dive deep into subjects that can help a person define, develop, and execute their legacy, and continue to scour the landscape for those who can be great resources to every dimension of your legacy. For many listeners, there can be never enough education and preparation in what I call the moat around the castle. Whether you find yourself with new wealth or generational wealth, may the content of this channel be an anchor in any storms ahead. We do our best to provide original content for your intellectual and emotional curiosity. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, I coach people on the subject of personal legacies. Of course, please do your own due diligence, as some areas are black and white, while others are gray in nature in the changing landscape. And in closing, I hope you find these podcast interviews entertaining in their education. Thank you so much for joining.